anyone with kids knows it's really not about what you're doing. It's about the time together. As corny as it is, getting ice cream and going to the park and hanging out.
Welcome, everyone, to the Driving Vision podcast brought to you by the Zeigler Auto Group. And here with me, Auto Group Director of Talent Development, Mike Van Ryn. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Sam.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, like it if you do, and leave a comment. Coming up this Thursday, September 14th, beginning 5:30 p.m. Eastern at the Radisson Plaza Hotel in Kalamazoo, Michigan, is the 41st Annual Drive for Life Foundation Gala. Do you have your ticket in hand yet? Don't miss your opportunity to join us that night and make a big difference in the world giving back. As part of our Drive for Life Gala episodes, we focus on the charities that benefit from our donations. Today, we sit down with Western Michigan's Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We go there now. So, hey, everybody, welcome to the special edition of the Driving Vision Future of Zag Today podcast. So today, Amy, we're here in studio at Zeigler, atop Zeigler Honda. It's always fun to be live and in place. Sometimes we do remote interviews, but more often lately we've been in the studio. So thank you and welcome.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So to our audience, with me today is Amy Kukta, CEO of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Southwest Michigan. I just attended your annual fundraiser at the Radisson.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we're getting ready today for the 41st annual Drive for Life Foundation Gala on Thursday, September 14th at 5:30 p.m. Same place at the Radisson. Last year we raised $1.2 million. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Southwest Michigan was a major benefactor of that event. But you had your own event. Tell us about that event.
Sure, we did. It was a few weeks ago. It's our annual benefit dinner, and it was the 46th year we've had it. So,
wow, so you got Drive for Life beat by 5 years. Very
impressive.
impressive.
And I'm very competitive, so that's good.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It's a very large sponsor event, which includes the golf outing and then a nice dinner at the Radisson and big sports speakers. This year, we were fortunate enough to have a panel of coaches from Western Michigan.
Yeah, which was awesome to see. As exciting as sports is at Western Michigan, in particular hockey. Western Michigan hockey has just exploded onto the scene, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone really enjoyed hearing the coaches speak, and Dan Bartholomew, the new AD, was there. So, I thought it was a great night. So
yeah, it was an awesome night. And we always talk about we meet our best selves on the other side of adversity. The golf event had a little adversity to it as everybody stuck around, but there was definitely a lot of rain.
Oh man, it was torrential downpours at some point. But and most of the golfers just had a great time and stayed, and those that left, that was fine.
Well, the dinner was fun. Thanks for having us there. So today we're here to talk about what you do as CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Southwest Michigan. Tell us a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters. How did it come to be, and what is your mission statement? How are you seeking to change the world?
Sure, absolutely. So actually it goes back to 1904.
Oh, wow.
It was begun in New York, and there was a court worker named Eris Coulter who saw all these boys basically coming through juvenile court and realized if they had an additional supportive role model that they likely wouldn't get into trouble and wind up in court. So he started the first Big Brothers program in 1904 in New York, and then eventually they added girls, realized girls needs mentors too.
Yeah.
And then we actually locally were founded in 1958.
Oh, wow.
Originally we were just Kalamazoo. And then in 1998, we added Allegan, Calhoun, and Van Buren counties. And our mission is really about igniting potential for youth. Really what we do is we make and support one-to-one mentoring relationships, which positively impact their outcomes and, potential for future success.
That's awesome. It's interesting. So initially they focused on young boys. They added girls. So it's Big Brothers and Big Sisters. It's interesting in my mind. I have a perception of what that means when you talk about your mission statement, who you seek to help. What are some of the biggest myths that you seek to overcome?
Sure. So I frequently hear two questions or concerns when I'm trying to recruit mentors for our program.
Yeah.
What I hear a lot of times are these bad kids? And so really what I try and help people understand is, first of all, I don't think there's any bad kids.
Yeah.
I think there's kids who make decisions that maybe aren't in their best interests.
Yeah.
Kids aren't bad. So I really like to be able to talk about that with people. And also the commitment that we ask for.
Yeah.
It's actually much less than most people think. It's 2 hours twice a month for a year.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. So very doable, very flexible. We have a number of program models. You can mentor at a school. You can mentor in the weekend. We have a sports buddies program. So basically what I tell people is if you have 2 hours twice a month for a year, we have a program model that'll really fit what you're looking to do.
So the biggest investment, obviously the dollars that come from the Drive for Life charity event are important, but the biggest investment that benefits these kids is the gift of time, which is not a tough ask, but time is a part of our life. Before that, you can change someone else's life, right?
Well, absolutely. And that's why really we try and be realistic about the time needed. And studies have shown that this amount of time consistently can impact a child's life.
Mm,
So people might also think, well, that's not very much time, but we're able to say, yes, the time and the consistency and just showing up.
yeah.
That's 90% of the program.
So, as a volunteer mentor with Big Brothers Big Sisters, one of the things I think about when we talk about that is, what do I do? How the heck do I do that? Like, how do you get trained as a mentor? As a parent, I think about, that feeling when you have that first child, and we had that feeling. It's like, oh no, we don't even want to take the child home from the hospital. And you have several years to kind of navigate that. As a mentor, you're in a position where all of a sudden you need to be there, be present. How do you learn to do that if you don't have that background?
Well, sure. So, actually, we have a very thorough interview and onboarding process for volunteers. And an important component of that is training about what the boundaries are and what is your role as a mentor and what's not your role.
Yeah.
So we a lot of training then, and then we provide ongoing coaching and support for the life of the match. So we're checking in at least once a month. What activities are you up to? Are you kind of running out of ideas? But the other thing we do is I really don't like mentors having to spend money. So we provide as many low cost or no cost activities as we can. And we're really fortunate. A lot of community partners will allow us to have free entry or maybe a buy one, get one. Because really, if you're spending your time, to your point earlier, I don't want you having to spend a significant amount of money as well. So, and anyone with kids knows it's really not about what you're doing. It's about the time together.
Yeah.
And so even just like as coordinated as it is, getting ice cream and going to the park and hanging out, like kids love that.
Isn't it interesting how valuable time is and how that time spent and invested can change a life? Like, have you seen specific cases over the past year? It's been a year since we've talked remotely last year as part of the interview and the podcast. Any examples of this mentorship working in the past year?
No, absolutely. And I'm sure my staff could tell you way more examples. But one thing that's been pretty neat that I learned about recently is we have a match with a big sister and little sister. They've been matched a number of years. And over this past year, the little sister created her own skincare line. And now she has a business online, and it's, and I can't say that's directly related to the match. However, I know that her big sister encouraged her, supported her, and was definitely an important part of her, her success with her business venture.
It's interesting because we believe in business that success is all about those connections and contacts you make, right? Like in business, if you know someone, it opens up doors and opportunities that previously wouldn't have been open. So it certainly makes sense that mentorship relationship would do the same. What's the skincare line? Can we advertise it, or is it?
I want to make sure I'm getting the name right.
Yeah, that's okay.
I know the little sister is Anaya, and I can send the information later.
We'll put it in the show notes, because what a cool thing that a business was born of that. And who knows, maybe it ends up being an incredibly successful business, but for the try is pretty neat. What type of feedback do you get from mentors, adults that come in and say, hey, I'm willing to give of that time? Does it impact their lives?
It absolutely does. I mean, we consistently hear from the mentors that it's easier than they thought it would, to my point earlier about the time, and that they get as much, if not more, out of the relationship because they're making a new friend. They're able to introduce them to new experiences. And I mean, I've been a big sister to my little sister, Chloe, for 11 years now, I think.
Wow.
And it's funny, as the relationship developed, I would actually kind of ask her advice on things the older she got, just kind of like, hey, what do you think about this? And really appreciate kind of the feedback she gave me. And, definitely I look to her for guidance on certain things, and that's been great.
So when we talk about this mentor relationship, Amy, in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking these are kids, maybe 7, 8, 9, maybe junior high school, but that somehow it ends at 18 or whatever. But you said 11 years. Do some of these relationships extend into adulthood?
They absolutely can. I mean, officially our matches close when the child graduates high school or turns 18.
Yeah.
But, like I told Chloe, as long as she's willing to hang out with me, I'm there, and we do see a lot of matches, last. But then I also want to balance that against the time I'm asking mentors for, because if I say, hey, I need the next 11 years of your life.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
Exactly. So
get a dog.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. So, so I try and, temper that, but it's, it basically you're making a friend. And as you think about it, if you make a good friend, you don't say at the year, like, oh, It's been great being
Right.
friends and I wish you well. So
Right. That's interesting. You mentioned how most people report they get more out of the relationship than they put into it. What is it about that where so often when we give, we actually end up getting back more? What is it about that relationship that causes us to get more back?
sure. Well, I mean, I think, as the mentor is making a new friend, they're learning about, new experiences that their little brother, little sisters had.
Yeah.
I think they're trying new things that they
Yeah.
might not do otherwise,
Yeah.
right? So I know my little sister and I tried curling years ago, and
Oh,
I never would have tried that if I wasn't
on
matched with
the
her.
ice thing, right?
Yep,
I've
yep.
seen that in the Olympics and it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not ready for the Olympics, but
No.
yeah, yeah. And so I think just new experiences and just kind of learning together,
Yeah.
So it's really, pushing the volunteer out of their comfort zone, not in a, too far out of their comfort zone,
Yeah.
but just doing new things. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff I've done with Chloe I never would have done if I wasn't matched with her.
So it pushes you outside your comfort zone. Also, living is giving. We hear that a lot, right? And rather than just being some crazy statement that means nothing, like there's something about giving back in a way where you make a connection where we're more fulfilled as adults. Why is that?
I think we all want to have an impact on the world,
Yeah.
right? And this is a way to do it, a very concrete way. Recently, I was at a conference and I heard the phrase, if you see it, you can be it. Right.
Ooh,
And I
yeah.
really like that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
But really, it's about, having our youth understand and see what their potential can be. Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, our youth, even, my daughter only knows what she sees,
Yeah.
and so introducing kids to new opportunities, whether they go that way or not, but at
Yeah.
least they have that knowledge in the back
Yeah.
of their head.
What a great program. It's interesting here at the Zeigler Auto Group, we have a mentorship program and we spend a lot of time and energy as a company trying to figure out how do you help someone get from point A to point B in proficiency. It's different because it's a business skill set rather than a life skill set. But one of the things I think we've learned is it's tough to force a mentor relationship, right? There's an element of that that just happens organically and naturally. And both sides really have to be willing, right?
Yeah.
So the person who's the mentor has to be willing to be time or to be selfless. And then the person being mentored has to be open to that mentorship, which isn't always the case, even though some may say it. So how do you find kids that are in that space? Like, how do kids find Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Southwest Michigan and kind of sign up for that program?
Sure. So their parent or guardian will contact us. And that is a key piece also of the program is that kids aren't forced to be in it.
Yeah.
They actually are really wanting the mentor relationship. The parent or guardian wants them to be in the program. And, to the point some agencies may say, like, this child needs a mentor. They don't have anyone in their corner. And I don't agree with that. I think, the parents or guardians reaching out because they have their child's best interest in mind and want them to have this experience. But a parent or guardian would contact us. We have an enrollment process. We do want to make sure that the youth does want to be in the program and find out kind of what mentor experience we're looking for. And then we match them based on that. So it's not just volunteer number one and youth number one. It's okay, well, we interviewed this young man and then we interviewed Sam and we're like, oh, I think they would make a good match. Yeah. So it's very, very intentional. We don't just, throw people together randomly.
So if I'm a parent, what type of parents typically benefit most? Is it, single parents? Is it parents working a ton? There's probably not a profile, but if there were, what would that look like?
It's interesting. I mean, any family or youth can be, enrolled in our program. That being said, I would say the majority of kids in our program either do come from single parent homes or families facing financial adversity. But what I also started seeing just even a couple of years before COVID was kids from two-parent homes that, weren't making friends at school. So there was that social emotional support that they needed.
Yeah.
And then also as financial stressors rose for families, I started seeing a lot more two-parent families trying to or accessing the program, enrolling their kids. So it's really been turning into not an economically based program or target as opposed to just which kids aren't getting their social emotional needs met. And then I mean, I know as a parent I love my daughter, but I can only meet so many of her needs.
That's right.
And if she's struggling making friends or doesn't have the additional special person, then that's not good for her.
So much of growing into a contributing healthy adult has to do with positive mental health as a child and making that transition. Like COVID has completely messed that up, right? Now we're kind of on the other side of that. You don't see a lot of restrictions anymore, but the effects and the impacts remain, don't they? What do you see as being the biggest impacts of that isolation for a period of time? And has it created a greater demand for what you do?
Absolutely. It's, it's interesting because during COVID, locally and nationally, we lost a lot of our matches because they met at businesses or schools.
Yeah.
And when those shut down, we had to close them. But the Surgeon General, I think about a year ago, released a study that said there's a youth mental health crisis because of COVID. So we're seeing a lot of our kids feeling, disengaged in school, feeling very isolated. And that's definitely different than it was before COVID.
Yeah.
I don't think we know yet long term how it's going to impact our kids, but that's also why it's so critical to make sure our kids are getting that additional support now.
Yeah.
And encouragement and mentoring, because we know they went through just an extremely rough time. We all did, but our kids really experienced it in a different way.
Well, kids had no life experience to figure out how to relate to the change. And they were really the last to kind of come back, so to speak. Business was deemed essential. And it seemed like those schools, they would shut down on a whim. So it's interesting. You go from social to isolation back to social. And because of technology and maybe some things they got involved in during that isolation, what you're saying a little bit is it's been tough for them to get back to being social, even though they're in a group. And it kind of reminds me of that statement people make about New York City. Any large cities, you can be alone in a crowd, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What a challenge. So if I'm a parent and I see a need for that with my kids, how do we reach out to you?
Sure. I mean, we have a website, which is great, which is thinkbigtoday.org, or our office number, which is 269-382-6800.
Awesome.
And just reach out to us and we can kind of explain the process. It is pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. Which it has to be because it's got to serve both sides, right? The mentor, the mentee, the child, and then we've got to make sure it's safe, right? And
absolutely. We focus a lot on child safety. We want to make sure that the activities that the mentors and youth are doing together are safe and appropriate.
Yeah.
So, for example, don't go skydiving.
Oh, come on. No skydiving.
Yeah. I think one of my staff members said, don't do any activities that Amy would have a heart attack if she heard about it. So, but it's, really just kind of increasing the exposure and it's really about increasing opportunities for our youth to participate in new activities.
Yeah. So I would imagine maybe there's some listeners, people listening today that are thinking, hey, I'm looking to give back in some way. I'm looking to connect in some way. If you're feeling that, especially listening to this, reach out and volunteer to become a mentor and reap the rewards of that. So as a parent, I have 4 kids. I would imagine as you oversee these mentorship relationships, you come up with some cool activities. So as we wrap up, what are some of the coolest activities or most unique or most productive or most meaningful to kids activities that you see out of those mentor relationships?
It's funny because kind of as we referenced before, it's the simple things in a way. And
doggone it. It's so funny because you talk about the holidays and gift giving. And, as parents, sometimes you think, hey, the most expensive, most elaborate gift is the greatest. And then particularly for younger kids, they end up playing with the cardboard box, right?
Completely. Yeah. I talked to a little brother yesterday and I said, what's the most fun thing you've done with he's actually part of a big family. And he said, we went to the lake.
Oh, wow.
That was your favorite? He goes, yeah, that's a favorite one so far. Yeah. They didn't do anything necessarily special.
It's free, right? It's
free.
The biggest expense there is the gift of time.
Yeah. And he's super excited about it.
That's crazy. Any other tips or ideas?
Oh, gosh. Well, we do have a whole resource page of activities to do.
There's a list.
So, I mean, there's stuff for indoors, outdoors.
Skydiving is not on the list.
Not on the list.
Bungee jumping is not on the list. Hiking probably is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Walking, biking, fishing.
Yeah, exactly. Even going to see a movie or something like that.
Jet skiing is probably not on the list.
Yeah, I don't like that idea.
That's interesting. I'll have to check out the list at some time. Well, Amy Cookta, CEO, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Southwest Michigan. Again, thanks for being on today's show. As a reminder to everybody, Drive for Life, our annual charity gala, is coming up September 14th, 5:30 p.m. at the Radisson Hotel in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Join us for that night. And remember, 100% of the proceeds contributed that night go directly to the charities without any expense load. The Zeigler Auto Group, Aaron Zeigler, and those who put on the event take all the expense internally. So everything goes directly to those charities. And Amy, we're super grateful for the benefit that you are having in the world and the way that you're changing the world. It's interesting. We always talk about the ripple in the pond. Some of the biggest impact you can just never know, right? You can never
Absolutely.
know. So I'm going to ask you one closing question. We had a speaker here. His name was Ben Nimpton, and he actually created a TV show that was on MTV and other networks for a period of time. And their entire focus was to check off bucket list items, life bucket list items. He spoke to the president. They sang the national anthem at an NBA basketball game. They went skydiving, and they also gave back as they achieved and accomplished those bucket list items. Amy, to put you on the spot, what's a bucket list item you personally have?
Oh gosh. That's a good question. Probably traveling somewhere. I'm going
Okay.
going out of state, out of country next week. So that'll be
Very
fun.
nice. Anywhere fun and exciting?
Spain and Amsterdam.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about bucket list really. That's a good question.
It's interesting. International travel, particularly outside the U.S., makes you really grateful for what we have here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably makes you better able to come back and serve and contribute in unique and interesting ways to the kids you serve. So, Amy Kuchta, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
A big thanks to all who contributed to this episode. Until next week, how are you driving vision today?